Winning the lottery would fix everything. That's the belief. You'd pay off your debt, buy a house, help your family, never stress about money again. Most people have a version of this fantasy. I've had it. Here's the problem. About 70% of lottery winners burn through everything within 5 to 7 years. Some end up worse off than before they won, not slightly worse. Bankrupt, in debt, estranged from family. A few have ended up dead. So here's the argument I want to make. The lottery doesn't change your life. It amplifies who you already are. And if you don't understand money, how it behaves, how people behave around it, and what happens inside your brain when you suddenly have more of it than you've ever seen, the money will leave faster than it arrived. If you want more videos like this, practical, honest, no fluff, hit subscribe. And if this one helps you think about money differently, give it a thumbs up. It actually helps. We're going to go through the 5 forces that drain lottery winners dry, and I promise you, at least 3 of them are already affecting your finances right now, even if you've never won a single dollar. Chapter 1. The Money Amplifier Problem. Most people think a windfall solves a money problem. What it actually does is multiply whatever relationship you already have with money, good or bad. If you're someone who saves consistently, invests patiently, and knows how to say no to bad decisions, a windfall accelerates all of that. You were already on the right path. Now you just move faster. But if you've never had money, never learned to manage it, never had to make hard trade-offs, never said no to lifestyle upgrades because you actually didn't have the option, a windfall doesn't teach you any of that. It just hands you a much bigger stage to replay the same patterns on. Here's the data point that should stop you cold. A 2010 study published in the Review of Economics and Statistics followed Florida lottery winners and found that winners of large jackpots were significantly more likely to declare bankruptcy within 3 to 5 years compared to winners of smaller amounts. More money, more bankruptcy. That is not intuitive. But once you understand the psychology, it makes complete sense. The problem isn't the money. The problem is the gap between the money in the bank and the financial maturity of the person holding it, and that gap can swallow millions. You might be thinking, okay, but if I won the lottery, I'd be smart about it. I'd invest it. I wouldn't go crazy. Maybe. But here's what most people don't account for, and this is the part nobody talks about. The threat doesn't come from inside you. It comes from everyone around you. Chapter 2. The Societal Pressure Machine. The day your lottery win goes public, your social world reorganizes itself entirely. Long-lost relatives appear. Friends you haven't spoken to in years suddenly remember you exist. People you grew up with, worked with, went to school with. All of them now have a story about why they need something and why you're the right person to provide it. This isn't cynical. It's well documented. A 2019 report by the National Endowment for Financial Education found that nearly 70% of people who receive sudden financial windfalls exhaust those funds within a few years. And one of the leading causes is social pressure. Family requests, loans that never get repaid, and the slow guilt of being the one person in your circle with money. Let's talk about a real case. Jack Whitaker won $304 million in the Powerball in 2002, the largest single-ticket jackpot in U.S. history at that point. He was already a successful businessman. He was not someone who'd never managed money. Within 4 years, he'd been sued multiple times, had over $500 stolen from his car in separate incidents, lost his granddaughter to a drug overdose partly funded by money he'd given her, and was reportedly broke. He said publicly that winning the lottery was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Now, Whitaker's case is extreme, but the underlying dynamic, money attracting chaos, dependency, and extraction from the people around you, is not extreme at all. It's the norm. And the psychological burden of saying no to people you love is something almost no one is prepared for. You give out a loan, then another, then a gift. Then you're funding someone's business idea. Then you're paying their rent. And every time you say yes, the next ask gets larger because the precedent has been set. You have money. They need things. That equation doesn't resolve itself. It accelerates. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Daniel. Daniel won just under $2 million in a state lottery in his early 40s. Not $300 million. Not even close. The $20 million to someone making $38,000 a year felt like all the money in the world. I want to stay with Daniel for a minute because his story isn't dramatic. There's no single explosion. It's a slow leak, and that's exactly why it's so important. Chapter 3, The Psychology of Sudden Wealth. There's a psychological phenomenon called sudden wealth syndrome. It's real. It's been studied, and financial therapists who work with lottery winners, inheritance recipients, and sudden settlement winners see it constantly. It has a few predictable phases. First, euphoria. Everything feels possible. You say yes to everything. You buy things you've wanted for years. You take care of people. It feels good because it is good, temporarily. Second, anxiety. Suddenly, you're managing more money than you've ever seen, making decisions you have no training for, being approached by financial advisors you can't evaluate, and second-guessing every move. The money that was supposed to bring peace is bringing a kind of pressure you didn't expect. Third, decision fatigue and avoidance. This is where real damage happens. The complexity becomes overwhelming, so instead of dealing with it, people stop dealing with it. They let the accounts run. They avoid the calls. They keep spending at a rate the money can't sustain because actually sitting down and doing the math feels worse than not knowing. And fourth, for many winners, shame and isolation. The friendships changed. The family dynamics changed. The person feels like they lost something they can't name. And the money, which was supposed to be a solution, now feels like the source of all their problems. Going back to Daniel, here's what his 5 years looked like. Year 1, bought a house in cash, bought 2 cars, gave his brother $80,000 for a restaurant that failed within 18 months. Year 2, paying property taxes he hadn't budgeted for, helping his mother with bills, starting to use his savings account like a checking account. Year 3, a financial advisor he'd hired churned his investments so badly, meaning the advisor traded constantly to generate his own commissions, that Daniel ended up with less than he started with after taxes and fees. He didn't know enough to catch it. Year 4, sold one of the cars. Year 5, sold the house. 7 years after winning $2 million, Daniel was renting a 1-bedroom apartment and working again. He told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "I thought the money would teach me how to handle the money. It doesn't work like that." Daniel's story is not about bad luck. It's about a set of forces, psychological, social, and financial, that almost no one is equipped to handle without preparation. And here's the thing. Those same forces are operating on whatever money you have right now, just at a smaller scale, which means the lessons here are not hypothetical. Chapter 4, The Financial Knell Gap. Let's talk about the second real case because it makes a different point. Evelyn Adams won the New Jersey lottery twice, once in 1985 and once in 1986. She won a combined $5.4 million. By the mid-2000s, she was living in a trailer, broke. She's been quoted saying she was too generous and too trusting, and that she wishes she had the chance to do it over. 2 wins, $5.4 million, 20 years, gone. What both Daniel and Evelyn share is something the lottery never provides: financial literacy. And this is the thing that kills me about how we talk about winning the lottery. We treat it like the end of the story. You won. Problem solved. But money without knowledge is like filling up a car that has no engine. The tank gets full. The car still doesn't go anywhere. Here's what financially literate people do when they receive a windfall. They don't touch it immediately. They hire a fee-only fiduciary financial advisor, someone paid by the hour, not by commissions on what they sell you. They take the lump sum, in most cases, understand the tax implications before signing anything, and move the principal into low-cost index funds while they figure out a long-term plan. They do not tell anyone other than a small, trusted circle. And they do not make major lifestyle changes for at least 6 to 12 months. That waiting period is everything. Because the impulse to spend, the relief of finally being able to say yes, is at its absolute peak in the first few months. The people who survive windfalls are the ones who delay those decisions long enough for the emotion to settle. You do not need to win the lottery to learn this. You need to learn it now, before the money arrives, so that if it ever does, you're already someone who knows how to handle it. Here's what this story is actually about. It's not really about the lottery. It's about the gap between having money and understanding it. Because the lottery just makes that gap visible in a dramatic, public way. But that same gap exists at every income level. Every time someone gets a raise and wonders where the money went, 3 months later, that's the gap. Every time someone dips into savings for something that wasn't an emergency, that's the gap. Every time someone says, "I'll start investing when I have more money," that's the gap. The lottery winners who go broke aren't morally weaker than anyone else. They just never had the chance to build the mental infrastructure that money requires. The skills, the habits, the defaults, the ability to say no. That infrastructure is what this channel is about. Building it before you need it, not because you're going to win the lottery, but because money is going to come and go from your life for the rest of it, in raises and setbacks and unexpected expenses and eventual windfalls. And the people who handle those moments well aren't lucky. They're prepared. Drop in the comments, if you found out tomorrow you'd won $1 million, what's the first thing you'd actually do? Be honest, the answer tells you more about your financial habits than any quiz.